I'm Colm Lyon. I'm the founder and the CEO at Fire, which is an embedded payments business. I'm also the head of a family office which makes early stage investments and invests in VC funds in the FinTech and payment space. And then I represent the industry on some different industry bodies, including the UK Finance Payments Products and Services Board. Fire Financial Services is a regulated business. It's regulated in the UK and Ireland since 2010, and we support about 1,500 businesses to help them, if you like, to automate and to streamline their payment process. So we make it easy for them to get paid. We make it cheap for them to be able to process payments in an automated way. Some of our customers might need thousands of accounts or thousands of debit cards because that's their particular business model. And what we do is we really deliver bespoke, customized solutions to our customers in the area of payment processing. So over the last decade or so, there's been a number of major trends, if you like, that have taken effect, and all of those trends have led to this new era of embedded payments, becoming the hot topic that it is today. And I think of those trends that are happening, there's three big reasons that I see. One is the regulation itself. So the regulation over the last number of years has changed. You would have seen examples in Europe where the Payment Services Directive came to fruition. And then also you've seen changes in the way in which the central banks throughout Europe and in the UK about 10 years ago, in fact, opened up access to what are called settlement accounts for non-bank financial service providers. So what does that mean? What that means is that businesses like Fire, which are non-banks, but they're called payment service providers, are able to access the payment systems in a way that they couldn't do up until that point. So that's the change in the regulation which has happened. In addition to the changes in the regulation, there's been changes also in the technology. And we all know that because we have it in our pocket, right? And we now all carry, maybe 1, 2, 3 bank accounts in our pocket. And therefore, when you think about that, you realize that you can pay from there perhaps without using your card. And the technology has leapfrogged forward to that point in time where you now have access. And from a business point of view, what it means is that businesses can also now get access to their account, perhaps without logging into the portal that's provided by the financial institution itself. So that technology shift has also opened up changes in the way in which people will consume the payment products. And finally, I'd say the third big trend that has emerged is that of changing expectations. So we all are consumed by instant messages, fast, short messages often too. And so business has gone a bit like that too, that we want to be able to consume things, and the need for, in particular, I think, instant payments and the ability to be able for me to send money as a business or as a person to somebody else, and for them to instantly receive that fund and to receive the notification that they have the funds as well. And in the case of a person, that might be to your phone, but in the case of a business, it could be an update to your ledger system. I think when a business goes about trying to embed payments into its own systems, I think the first thing the first major challenge, if you like, that they see is that it's a change in the way in which they operate. So, and that's the big change really. It's not like it's not really a technology challenge. It's more I'm going to change the way in which I'm actually realizing when I'm paid and how I'm going to pay out. Like so, we have to change. And what we see is those businesses, the obstacles will be around, I think, that they maybe can't get these services from their existing bank. So their existing bank maybe doesn't have, what we call an API. It doesn't have this ability to be able to integrate directly into the accounts that you have. They mightn't be able to open up 1,000 accounts in real time through an API. They might have to fill up forms, right? So businesses are faced with this dilemma that today they're kind of stuck in having to consume a product that maybe it functionally works, but they can't really access it in the manner in which they want. So I think for businesses, we see them trying to embed is hence the word embedded payments, right? But they're trying to incorporate, if you like, the functionality of a third-party product into their own systems, and that makes complete sense these days because they want to automate, and they want to save money and they want to save time. One of the things that we learned in Fire right from the get-go, if you like, was that every customer kind of wants a bespoke arrangement. Right? You think that you've got a single product and everybody's going to consume it, and they will consume the underlying product perhaps, but they will implement it in a different way. So you have to understand the subtlety between saying, I've got this, and do you want to buy it? Like, and then they kind of say, well, yeah, but how do I use it, right? So you have to spend a good bit of time, and certainly within Fire, we've learned that over the years, to spend time understanding the business model of the customer first and foremost. And because we could have a customer that might want just one account, we could have another customer that might need 10,000 accounts, right? So you have to understand the flow of the money, the way it's going to come into the different accounts, and the way in which it will go out. And then you have to help them integrate. So you've got to make sure that you're an API first, which is what we are. We've got a massive developer center. We provide all of the support and the resources that are needed so that developers can very easily integrate into Fire as well. And that kind of understanding of the customer needs become very, very important. One of the other things that we see as well in terms of the trends I mentioned earlier was the rise of account-to-account based payments. So this ability for businesses to get paid without accepting cards. So in other words, their customers can come to them and pay directly from their bank accounts. And businesses are really attracted to this because it's going to be cheaper, right? It's going to have less fraud, potentially more secure, and it's what we call in the trade a push payment method. So in other words, the consumer is pushing the money from their account rather than today where you might give your credit or debit card details to a merchant and then they will pull the money from your account. And inherent in that is a bit of a revolution, really, because that's what's going to really change the way in which people pay and get paid. Fire across the UK and Ireland has well over about 1,500 clients, I'd say. And some of those clients, in fact, include some of the largest financial institutions in Europe that use Fire, which might surprise some people, but we are the plumbing, if you like, underneath. And in essence, what Fire is trying to do is to enable our customers to go to market with new and better payment services themselves. So we would have a large UK bank, for example, that uses us for what's called open banking payment acceptance. So they have merchants and they enable those merchants to get paid by card. And what they do is they use Fire then to enable those merchants to get paid also from bank accounts. And Fire is providing both the technology and the collection, reconciliation, and settlement of the funds because we're a regulated party. We can do that. Another good example of a client that Fire works with would be a company called Just Tip. And Just Tip is a very smart company that's scaling up at the moment. And what they do is they help hospitality merchants, so pubs and shops and restaurants, to separate out the tipping component or the gratuity from the actual bill itself. And that's necessary because of the legislation. So what we do for Just Tip is we enable them to disperse the money to all the staff, on a regular basis. And that's something where they're not going to sit down and type all those payments in, right? They need an integrated way. And their system knows who's due to be paid, when they're due to be paid, how much needs to be paid. So all that system needs to do is send those messages in an integrated way to Fire, and Fire takes care of the rest. So there's a whole range of different types of businesses that we support in Fire. And as I said earlier, each comes with its own kind of bespoke kind of requirement that they have. And our job is to try and understand that requirement and then implement a solution with them using Fire that meets their objectives. So the payment landscape is constantly evolving, right? We're seeing, all the time. And if you think about, maybe not everybody, but certainly for me, when I started out, we used to go into a branch to make a payment, right? Then we started using the web to make a payment. And then I started using my mobile phone to make a payment, right? And now in the next generation, I'm not going to use the banking app at all. I'm going to just log into Spotify. I'm going to be listening to some music. I like the artist. I want to give them a tip. I'm going to press a button to tip. And that payment will be initiated without me logging in to the banking app that's been provided to me. And that's what we mean by embedded payments, right? Now, for a company like Fire to be at the forefront of that revolution, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are deeply connected into all the different payment schemes. So we have to join payment schemes are like the clearing systems, if you like, that operate both in the UK and Europe. And we try to join those payment schemes in a deeper way as possible. So again, because of our regulation, we're legally entitled to join those schemes. And then what we do is we build our own tech, and what we're able to do is connect into those payment networks. So right now for us, our focus is on joining SEPA Instant, for example. And SEPA Instant will enable us to give our customers the ability to then get paid and pay out in 10 seconds to any bank account, like right across Europe. And, again, when you think of what that's going to do to the way in which people pay and get paid, and particularly for businesses, it really is going to transform the way payments work. So I think there are three big trends which are happening right now, and it's the regulation, and regulation is opening up access to non-bank firms to be able to join payment schemes, and that is very transformative. It also enables customers to be able to access their bank accounts without logging into the bank, right? For both businesses and consumers, with their consent, of course, right? So that's a big, big change that's occurring. The second change is the technology itself. So we now know that we're living in the era of API and embedded access, and people want to incorporate the functionality of payment services into third-party applications. So if I'm a restaurant and I've got a POS device on my desk and I'm putting in a payment, I should be able to see the balance of my bank account at the same time. I shouldn't have to log in to find out. I shouldn't need to log in to know that I've been paid. It should just simply update my systems and tell me in real time. And the third and final thing I think that's really changing is the way in which I think people and businesses now expect things to be instant. You want to be paid, and you want to be paid right now, and you want to know that you've been paid right now.